is there a limit to how many days you'll let someone in treatment stay on the Suboxone? Because like I just remember guys in rehab, when I was in rehab, who would just complain, like when they were getting near the end, when they were supposed to be weaning off it, they would start, well, I don't feel right yet, or I don't, and I still need it. And they would get angry with those nurses. I need it and I need it. And they would fight till the point where they got it.
I'm Flindt Andersen, founder of PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Dan Karaty, the host of the If I'm Being Honest podcast, as well as his memoir, which is going to be available soon in the United States. And you might recognize his name as one of the original hosts of So You Think You Can Dance. As I said, this is the second part of our conversation with Dan. If you missed the first part, go back. It was just available last week.
I'm very selfish. I didn't know that. It's something I've come to realize fairly recently, actually. I think part of the reason I've been fairly successful thus far in trying to stay sober is that I don't have a very difficult time focusing on me, right? and I come first during the day, right? And and it allows me to. So when it came to recovery, well, my recovery comes first. That's my priority. That's what I'm doing. That's not a bad thing, right?
No, it's not.
But there's there's limits to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized part of the reason I've been good at my job over the years is because it's very easy for me to block out everybody, including my family, and focus on my work. I just did an Ironman. That's quite an undertaking and quite time consuming. I had no problem zeroing in and like I wake up in the morning and that's what I'm doing, you know, and it's dangerous. Like my selfishness can be a superpower because it allows me to accomplish certain things, but it's real easy for me to push everybody else aside. And I need to be really careful about that because like, as we've talked forever here about, I got a good one in my wife, I need to be careful because I do a lot of taking for granted. A lot of she comes second or third, to my sobriety, to my kids, things like that. And I need to be really careful and aware of that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I always tell people to be aware of, look, my job is this is what I do. I do interventions. I talk to families. I talk to addicts. I will go anywhere, anytime, any day of the week, Christmas, Easter, doesn't make any difference. Okay. If somebody needs me, my ass is there and I've done it for 14 years. But there came a point with my wife where I was going on a Christmas morning somewhere because the kid, took a nosedive. The family's calling me. They're blowing up my phones. Damn, Dan, I have 3 phones. Okay. I mean, how stupid is that? Right. And I finally, this is just before COVID hit, I finally had to say, okay, I gotta draw some boundaries here with the clients that I have.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to go on Christmas Day anymore. Okay. There's another route, another way to handle it. If you need to call 911, get them to the emergency room, that's fine. I will come back the following day, whatever it is, because I didn't realize in me wanting to help somebody so bad, I was pushing my wife and sons and the rest of my family too. I'm talking cousins, aunts, uncles. I was pushing them off to the side a little bit. And we just have to be careful of that,
Yeah.
It's tough, but I definitely commend some things that you shared, Dan, where it's that
and Flindt will talk about this, I do too, is eventually we got to leave the comfort of the 12-step room and start applying this stuff and being tested. And I'm a believer that, the tests that come my way are from my higher power and towards, living a life of purpose. But it's imperative, otherwise we do get in that stagnant place that you were talking about earlier. And I believe that's in a lot of the area of relapse. When I went back and identified my slip up, relapse, whatever you want to call it, was like, it was really surrounding that. I just continued to flatline my life. And that's just not the way to go. Not for any life, let alone that of a recovering addict.
Yeah. I also think we can become addicted to our recovery. I mean, I know guys that look, I'll say it in this way. If you're clean and sober 20 plus years and you're asking your wife to go on a AA cruise ship, okay, there's something wrong there. All right. Because if you're on vacation, if you got to go to 3 meetings during that week after 20 years, you know what? There's something wrong with your ass. Okay. I mean, sorry, I'm just calling it the way I see it, Well,
that's, I think there's just like anything else, right? There's limits to it. It's like the whole, you need to chase your recovery as hard as you chase your addiction.
Yeah.
I agree with that, especially in the beginning.
Yep.
But I mean, life does move on in certain things, and you can find a certain level of normalcy. You don't have to live and breathe it 24/7. And that's something like my wife has been so invested in this, obviously, that in the beginning when I would take my foot off the gas of, going to a meeting every single day or whatever, she was really nervous at first. Why aren't you going to a meeting today? I said, well, I don't need a meeting today. I'm doing a podcast. I'm having coffee with a buddy. Like, how much recovery stuff do you want me to do? But what's funny is now she's going to the whole other end of the spectrum. Jason, I think that's how we started talking originally to do this again, is because she's investigating all these other types of recovery now as well, and wondering should I be working any of this stuff in?
Right. Like smart recovery or refuge recovery or any of those kinds of programs?
Or psychedelic recovery.
Oh, we want to stay away from that one, I think.
But this is really interesting because I have some friends who have tried it and they swear by it. Yeah, right. Sure. And I said to and my wife's friends with them as well, so she's heard all the stories. And I said, Natasha, I go, the last thing I need is a mind-altering experience.
There it is.
I don't see me coming back from that. No matter how much progress I might make, and I might, I might uncover some things and find some things out about myself, but I'm terrified that I'm going to love that feeling the way I always love that feeling. Right. And I'm going to be like, so when do we go back?
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's like, I feel like it opens that door, and but again, I wasn't an opiate addict. Right. And I know all these guys who are opiate addicts who they've used opiates to get off the opiates. And now there's just addicted to these other opiates.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so that's, now I'm doing all this research, finding out, well, maybe the psychedelic thing is for them. Maybe it's not for them. I don't know. It's a really tricky topic.
Yeah, no, it was
we could spend another hour just on that topic itself right there. Yeah. That's just because again, first of all, the methadone, Suboxone thing, let me tell you something, man, that is something that I am fighting tooth and nail.
Yeah.
Right now.
Let me read Dan's tweet. This is what really prompted the talk, and it was great. And I felt like you and me actually had an exchange, whereas other people were like, look, it was a question, people. It wasn't a statement. It was, should we trust the same machine that created the opioid epidemic to help treat it? The treatment plan for opioid addicts is more opioids, Suboxone, methadone, Subutex. Isn't that like telling, and I related to this, as an alcoholic, just give us a small amount of alcohol it's an area that we fight a lot, especially when it comes to the long-term harm reduction. That's the thing that is I don't know. You make the distinction. I was trying to explain in the tweet, the detox process with Suboxone, but it's a quick wean off. And
So look, with methadone, let's start with methadone. First of all, I think that's the devil's drug. It took me 2 years to get off of it. And the reason why I say this stuff, Dan, is because I did it. I mean, I was doing it all. Methadone was developed back in the late 40s and 50s by the Germans. And again, it was a tool to keep heroin users off of heroin. It's a synthetic opioid that has a pretty long life to it. That's why you can take it once a day. These methadone clinics are not, quote, treatment centers. They're maintenance centers is what they are. And it is the most difficult drug to come off of. You can, and I did have a psychotic break by trying to come off of it too quickly. That's why it took me 2 years. And what happens here is it causes numerous long-term health issues, sleep disorders, bowel obstructions, heart issues. It makes you so constipated while you're taking the drug that I tore everything inside of me, and they had to surgically repair it because of the methadone use. Now you're also with methadone. It's run by the DEA and the federal government.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised, top-quality care with programs for detox, inpatient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living, support groups, and more. With 50-plus years of combined experience and sobriety, Flindt, Andersen, and Thelma Gatlin Wilson provide adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect, and a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery. To proudly create and sustain a life without addiction, call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
If you're on methadone and you're getting your dose from a clinic in Los Angeles, and you go to Seattle for the weekend with your wife, and you forget your methadone, you cannot walk into another clinic in Seattle and get your dose for the day. You are going, the withdrawals are so bad, and it's going to start in about 24 hours after your last dose, that you are going to want to get on an airplane, and you're going to have to come back. Okay. You're going to have to come back. You cannot walk into another clinic anywhere in the country or the world. You have to get permission to take it out of the country, right? It's a nightmare. And look, if it's going to keep the 65, 70-year-old street person off of fentanyl or off of heroin for the rest of their life, then I don't care, right? But why are we strapping a 25-year-old to it, a 30-year-old to it for the rest of their lives? It's bullshit, because they're not even telling what I just told you. They're not even telling the clients this, right? It's come on in. Oh, by the way, if you just want more, you tell the doctor, hey, doc, my dose isn't holding me, right? The doctor will go, okay, well, let's take you up a few milligrams. Again, it's a for-profit business. I have no problem with for-profit businesses, but don't claim you're a treatment center, right? Don't claim you're a treatment center when you're not one, right? Okay, now that's kind of the real generalized on methadone. Suboxone, I own a treatment center. We use Suboxone for opiate withdrawals in about a 7 to 10 day period. It's a fantastic drug for that. But you start to titrate that drug immediately. You start reducing it immediately, because you will become dependent on that drug as well. It's a synthetic opioid.
And we're seeing it.
And we're seeing it all day long. People can't get off of it. By the way, Suboxone's, this isn't out there either, but it's a street drug. People are selling it on the street. that also, the long-term health effects, this basically the same as methadone. And why do you want to keep somebody strapped on that for the rest of their life? I just don't get it. But like I said, but when you put these drugs in your system, I think the other fallacy is certain treatment centers will tell you, okay, we're going to detox you off the Suboxone and you're going to be fine. Well, guess what? Even at the end of that taper, you're going to go through a little bit of uncomfortability. You're going to go through a little withdrawal symptoms because you're putting a damn drug in your body. It's got to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
Nothing is butterflies and rainbows here. All right. And oh God, I'm fine. Right.
Yeah.
No, it's all bullshit. So again, those are kind of short explanations on what those drugs are.
I know everybody, like every patient is a little different.
Yeah.
But is there a rule of thumb? Is there a limit to how many days you'll let someone in treatment stay on the Suboxone? Because like I just remember guys in rehab, when I was in rehab, who would just complain, like when they were getting near the end, when they were supposed to be weaning off it, they would start, well, I don't feel right yet, or I don't, and I still need it. And they would get angry with those nurses. I need it. And they would fight till the point where they got it.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what?
And I'm like, they're going to do that every day. We're addicts, right? we're going to fight to get our fix.
Look, and the longer you've been on a drug, and we'll just use opioids as the example because we're talking about Suboxone. Look, the big part of that latter part of withdrawals, it's the psychological piece. Mm-hmm. We're so used to being on something, we don't know how to act when we're not on it anymore. Yeah. Even taking that thing down to a 0.5 milligram scares the shit out of us because, my God, what am I going to do without it? Right? I mean, I know guys that have taken that. And by the way, I want you to think about this. The manufacturers of Suboxone, they don't have a 1 milligram strip. It goes to a 2 milligram strip. If they really want somebody to taper down from that, why aren't they coming up with a 1 milligram strip and a 0.5 milligram strip? Because now people have to sit there and they have to take a little scissors and they've got to try to cut it down and cut it down and cut it down to where there's just that little tiny bit. Nobody does that shit. Okay. Nobody wants to sit there and try to cut it down. I mean, these are all things to think about that people aren't talking about and aren't informing the public on, and again, the long-term harm reduction piece, we have people all out there that are basically telling the person, you're never going to be able to get clean, you pussy. Yeah. Okay. That's basically the message that they're sending. Right now, to some degree, they're correct. There are people that are never going to be able to get clean. Let's just call it what it is. Right. But again, I think that's an age thing. I think when you're in your late 60s and 70s and God, why put somebody through that? I mean, let's be honest here. It's like when my grandmother turned 85 and my mom said, your grandmother's drinking too much. I said, who gives a shit? She's 85. Okay. She doesn't drive. She doesn't swim. Okay. She's not out dancing on tables on Saturday night. Okay. Let her enjoy a few beers here on, at home. Right. It's kind of the same thing there. But anyway, I mean, that's just kind of my little.
Yeah. But that's where I said in the tweet, and you just touched on it there when I said, why should we trust the same machine that started this whole thing with trying to fit? I don't think they have a real interest in trying to solve this. They don't. No, it's just, how else can we make money off this? And that's what they do, the Suboxone and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're just counting how much money's coming in. They don't give a shit if we get right. But, it takes us back to the beginning of the conversation then when you brought up aftercare. And I think this is for everything, right? It's because if you go, like I had a guy on my podcast. He has an Ibogaine treatment center in Mexico, psychedelic treatment center. But he thinks it's a wonder drug and he thinks it's amazing. But he was very clear about the aftercare program is what will make it work or not, right? me going to rehab, I got clean. It introduced me to the 12 steps, but then it was about what was I going to do with it when I got out.
There
right?
it is.
And I think that's for anybody, right? It's like any kind of rehab you go to, it's fine. It can get you on a better path, but it's all what you make of it afterwards.
It is, but there's also, look, you also have to keep in mind there's two different types of treatment. One is for the people that have PPO insurance and or the cash to be able to pay for a treatment stay somewhere. Then you have people that have no money whatsoever or have Medi-Cal or some sort of government-assisted help. And when you're talking about county programs in particular, a lot of these county programs, they don't have enough beds available. When the person calls, they're talking to a voicemail. They're getting 15 different prompts. And so when the addict needs that help, they're hanging up the phone because they're going through 20 minutes of somebody telling them how wonderful the program is and push 9 and push 2 and push this and push that. And then the care of those places, opioid addicts need to be medically detoxed. You can't just throw somebody in a room. Excuse me, I have a faith, but you can't throw somebody in a room with a Bible and say, pray your ass out of this thing. Okay. It doesn't work that way. Plus, there's no reason to put somebody through that kind of hell anymore. Opioid withdrawals are by far the worst of all time, of all time. Look, again, another show, another insurance thing talk we could have about all this mess because it's ugly, right? I mean, it is ugly. But also when you're dealing with county programs, look, our clientele here, we call it the north of Herndon crowd, where they all come from some money. There's means behind them. They're not going to send their kid to a county run program where they've got, you become a better drug addict and criminal coming out of the place. And that's not everybody. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
All right. But a good portion of it is, but again, to get into those places right now, it's almost impossible to get in. Then you take us in private treatment, right? We want to help people. We scholarship people. We do those things, but it's expensive. And especially here in the state of California. I mean, my God. I mean, what it takes to run these places is a nightmare. I wake up at 3 nights a week, with a pit in my stomach, So we're just kind of in this mess that I don't know how the hell we're going to get out of it.
And it's got to be so important. That moment that, as an addict, when you admit you need help, it's such a small window, right?
Yes,
and it's. Like, I know if I didn't have my wife, if I had said, I need help, 5 minutes later, I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out, but it was too late. I had already said it and she was already on the phone looking for the place.
Right.
If I had called the place and like you said, I was dealing with some voice automation or something like that, fuck it. Right. I would have hung up and I would have gone to have another drink. Right. I wouldn't have been there, So it's got to be not ridiculously quick and easy, but there can't be too many hurdles to get over to get in there, because they'll throw up their hands and they'll go back to what they've been doing.
There's a national company out there that they do not take their any client from Thursday evening through Sunday. How is that even possible? They do not take them Thursday evening through Sunday. And you have to continually call every single day. You're put on a list to see if there is a bed available. And again, as long as I'm on this roll, then you talk about places like the Salvation Army, Teen Challenge, some of these places. They do not medically detox at all because they don't have the licensing for it. You can't even take a blood pressure medicine in those places. So how do you expecting with a fentanyl epidemic, with an alcoholic epidemic, with the epidemic in general, you can't even give these people medications inside there are you fucking kidding me? I mean, to me, it's almost criminal to even for somebody to go in there and for them to just put them in a room somewhere. But what they claim, or what they're asking you to do, is to be 3 days clean and sober. Nobody's clean and sober in 3 days.
Oh.
Nobody. I mean, it's just, it's nuts.
No chance.
Right.
I was drinking beers on the way to rehab.
I took 42 Vicodin from 6 a.m. No shit. 40, because I was taking 70 a day at that point. But 42 Vicodin from 6 a.m. By the time we landed in Palm Springs at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I dropped 42 of those fuckers.
Oh my God.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
You're making me, this conversation is going to put me on my phone when we get off, and I'm going to be reading all the news and everything, right? Is it government red tape that's causing the problem in facilitating like what we need?
Yes.
Like without getting political, just is that ultimately what it is?
Yes, and again, Jason knows this as well because we tackle this issue all the time. They're stupid. They don't understand addiction, number one, all right? They don't understand the detox process that somebody has to go through. They just don't get it. They're not asking us. They're not asking the right questions. They're not asking the right people. What is it going to take to help this situation out? We all know it's long-term treatment. It's proper detox methods. It's not safe injection sites. I'm sorry. It's not fentanyl test strips either. It's not clean needles. It's not any of that. And these people think that Narcan, fentanyl test strips, they think these are all treatment tools. These are not treatment tools. Those are life-saving tools, period.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and my point to this is they don't understand addiction. They don't get it. And I don't think they want to get it, to be honest with you.
I'm a follow the money guy. I think it's because there's so much backing for their campaigns and everything else, and Big Pharma has a lot of damn money. And as we know, with the United States medical system, there's no money in the cure.
Yeah,
like I don't know how many things. I had some gut issues. I had to change. I was here, take this pill. This pill just gave me. I was like getting ulcers and everything else. I just changed my diet for 6 months.
Yeah.
Started to clear up, so it's
no, Dan,
go ahead.
No, I was part of a panel and a speaker at a medical whatever you call it, consortium, whatever it was. This was just a few weeks ago, and the reason why I'm saying this is as I was speaking and as I was listening and as I was watching, the place is filled with physicians here in the San Joaquin Valley. I could not believe the lack of knowledge that every one of these physicians had when it came to addiction and to opioids in general. They didn't know dick about hardly any of it. It was, and I've always kind of known that, but not really. And unbelievable. The lack of knowledge to me, again, was almost criminal. How can they help when they don't understand? How can politicians help when they don't understand? They can't.
No. But how do we, the million-dollar question is, how do you change it, right? Because we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but it's like you run your own treatment facility, but you're still at their mercy.
Yep.
For so much. So, like, how does that get changed? Or
Well, okay. So a couple of things. We work with an assemblyman. His name is Jim Patterson here in the Valley, and he's just a wonderful man, wonderful human being, and he's all over this. I think what's happening, of course, we've taken it to a new level because of fentanyl. But opioids in general, what we're trying to do is we just can't keep going into the public health and safety committee meetings and trying to explain things there, because that's not a conversation situation. It's presenting a bill. It's trying to get that passed. Until we can literally sit down with these congressional people, the senators, the congressmen, the assembly people, until we can get in a room and sit down with them and try to explain what it's going to take, nothing is ever going to change here. That's the key, is getting in front of these people. Look, we can parade parents that lost their kids all day long in front of these people, and they're going to go, "Oh, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. We're so sorry." That's to the extent of where this thing goes, is the "I'm sorry." Until we can get these people to understand what it's going to take, we're just not going to get anywhere. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to set up meetings to get into some of these people to talk with. But again, it's politics. So, it's a long ass road. That's where we have to start.
Yeah.
Right. My honest take, Dan, I think we need someone like yourself that, and other people of notoriety or money, to get in front of them. But I think if there was a play to their ego, like, "Hey, do you watch, that So You Think You Can Dance? Well, Dan Karaty wants to meet with you." It's like, you know what I'm saying? Or, "Hey, you want to talk with Charlie Sheen?" And having someone like that, I'll sit there and do it, "Hey, let me tell you about this fucking fentanyl." You know what I'm saying? I just think it's going to take money or some people of notoriety to be able to get in the room with them and really wake them up. Yeah. Or maybe that'll draw enough press that they'll then have to really give a shit. Because I just don't think they care. I don't think they care that they'll sit and they'll push all this harm reduction. See, it's great. It's working. If it was working, why are we going for another record year of overdose deaths in the United States? What are we figuring 130,000 this year?
Well, no, nothing they're doing is working, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Right. And Jason's right. Again, it's going to take somebody of some notoriety. But the people with notoriety, they better know what the hell they're talking about, or they need to bring our ass in and to talk with them as well. Yeah. Because, somebody can be famous or extremely popular and they can go in and talk, but we don't need that just stalling right then and there. Okay.
We need the person who's going to ask the right question, but then also, like you said, they need to know what they're talking about so that they can answer whatever the questions are. Because so often they'll throw a question back. "Oh, I got it too."
There you go.
So often, when you do get in front of them, they throw 12 more questions back at you and send you on your way. Go figure that out, and then we'll reconvene.
Yeah. Right.
And it's got to be someone who, like you said, knows their shit, that can hit them right there in that moment.
You have to have that answer that comes right back at them and says, and just give it to them directly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're still going to drag things out. Right. But I do. We're just not going to get anywhere. Obviously the way we're going now. And I've said it in the past. I mean, does some assemblyman person's kid have to die? Before something happens here? I don't wish that on anybody. Yeah. But we also, Dan, and I, again, this is the whole political thing here. I'm sorry, we've got to do something about the border. Look, I just posted something last night that the DEA, they indicted 8 Chinese companies in China, all right, for sending all the precursors over to Mexico so they can manufacture the fentanyl and get it across the border. We're not going to ever stop drugs from coming over the border. Even if the border's closed, they're still going to figure out a way to do it. But if we don't do something, okay, to stop that from at least putting some sort of dent in it, and DEA is busting their ass trying to do this, but there's only 5,000 DEA agents worldwide that are working on the fentanyl epidemic.
Yeah.
You don't stop anything with that. And when you fight a dragon, you don't start by cutting off the tail. You start by cutting off the head. That means okay, do we need to go in and we need to do some damage to the cartels? Yeah. We do.
100%. And that's what I like, to go back to a point you made earlier that drives me crazy. Like the fentanyl tests and stuff like that they come up with so that, we can make sure that the drugs that we're doing,
right,
we're not going to die from tonight. Like, that's your answer? Like, I get it. That's better than nothing, but man, that's a shit answer. It's like, I got a 9 and a 12-year-old, and it scares the shit out of me. But if they're anything like me, they're going to try something, and thank God in my day, with all the shit I tried, that there wasn't fentanyl, because I definitely would have come across it at some point, and
sure, that
scares the shit out of me. But what am I supposed to say to my kids? Well, just make sure you test the coke before you do it.
Yes, that's what they're saying to do. Now, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to go to the store or order it online, order a fentanyl test strip, or better yet, just go online and get the directions on how to use one. Because it takes a degree in engineering to figure out how to use a fentanyl test strip. And not one addict is going to go through that whole routine when they're kicking and they're shaking and they're crapping in their pants, all right, because they don't have enough fentanyl in their system. They're not going to test anything.
Yeah.
Their ultimate goal is to get it in their body as quickly as possible. Now you take a fentanyl. Look, this is the other thing that's not being talked about out there. Fentanyl test strips are mainly being used by casual drug users on a Friday or Saturday night who will go out and buy cocaine. If they're not testing that cocaine, they're idiots.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that are using. The addict isn't using the fentanyl test strip. I'm sorry.
If they are, they're going, hell yeah, it's got fentanyl in it. Perfect. I got what I was buying.
Right. I mean, Jesus, how stupid are these politicians up there?
Well, and I just think it's the advocacy people too.
It is.
They're not. Where's the pipeline to get people help at the end of the day?
What's wrong with abstinence?
That's the conundrum. Like when you were talking about, I've had people too, like, hey, I got this shaman psychedelic. You should do it and unlock some of this trauma. It's like, no, I'm good. And these are the same people that works. Well, then why have you done it 5 times if it works? Would you need to do it 5 times? I wouldn't think so. Right. I would think 1 time and you're on your way. So, I mean, I don't know. Shit.
So what is for me, someone who I do have some time on my hands, and I want to be involved, but I don't want to live in the news cycle. I can't.
Right.
It's not healthy for me.
Right.
Where can I educate myself more so that I can have a better conversation about this, and so that if and when the time comes that I can move and shake and get through somebody and maybe talk to someone and maybe try to how can I educate myself a little more as to what is going on and what should be going on? Okay.
Look, I think the best way at this point, and it's pretty simple. You need to talk to guys like me. And I'm not saying that from an arrogant standpoint. I'm not. Look, opiates is what I know. I mean, I didn't want this on my resume, Dan, but here it is. And until we get more people telling the truth about this, you can go online, you can find out some things, but look, I've done that for years. I've tried to go online and find places that are telling the truth about it. It's very difficult to find.
Yeah.
It really is. You just need to get a little bit more personally involved with guys like us, in order to learn about this. Now, am I sitting here saying that I know everything about this there is to know? No, I would be a fool to say that I know everything about it, but there really isn't much I don't know. I shouldn't be sitting here. I shouldn't have survived. I should have died 10 times over, right? I've had 2 heart attacks, 2 open heart surgeries. I've had more problems than you can shake a stick at, but my fat ass is still sitting here. All right. So it's here for a reason. And there is knowledge in this head about this, and the one thing we can't do is we can't sugarcoat it with people anymore.
Yeah.
Those days are over. They're over, So I think look, I'd be more than happy to help you out in any way I can. This is what I do. This is what I live for, but it's about affecting change. And then, of course, it's about getting that right person in government on our side, which again is Jim Patterson and the new guy, David, coming up, that we have to have people in our camp, to attack this thing, the proper way. Because I just don't think there's enough good advocates. I mean, there are, I don't want to say there's not. There are good advocates out there, but there are so many of them that I hope this makes sense. I'll be listening to them and they kind of sound like I'm like what I'm talking about. And all of a sudden I'm going, man, that's pretty good. Okay. I like what they say. And then all of a sudden they come into the methadone piece or the Suboxone piece and want to keep somebody on there for a longer period of time. And I go, and I just turn it off. Okay. Because I'm tired of hearing that crap.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Well, because the reason I asked that is because in the drinking world, in the alcohol world, I feel like there are some fantastic people talking. Yeah. And I feel like people really fucking tell you what it is.
Yes, they do.
You get it. You get it when you listen to them. You get why they can't touch that shit, why it's the devil to them, right, and everything. When I get into the opioid world, I don't get that same feeling. I don't get that same feeling from someone who's trying to deliver a message to me about the dangers of it and why you need to stay away from it and how we can help everybody in the future. It just doesn't have the same meat that those alcoholics.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. And think about this. Again, it happened to be me. It could have been somebody else. I've been yelling about this since 2009. All of a sudden Purdue came in. I was yelling about that. If you look at history, if you look at the record of the United States, nothing's changed, and everything kind of comes back every 10 years. Okay, and it's constant. It's been constant. I mean, seriously, I was talking about fentanyl when everybody's going, what the fuck is fentanyl? Okay, I mean, everybody's talking about OxyContin in 2010 and 2011. My God, in 1998, it was out there. So again, there are a few of us out there that are making this kind of noise. But like I continue to tell this man right here, okay, it's going to take, look, I'm in the fourth quarter here, gentlemen. All right. I mean, let's just call a spade, right? I mean, it's going to take guys like you that are going to have to learn this first to be able to keep going with it and to take it to where it needs to be taken to, because my time is running out here. Not saying, it's sort of like I believe in the Holy Ghost. I don't necessarily want to meet him today, right? But I mean, let's just call it, again, it's the facts.
Yeah.
So we've got to have somebody that's going to take this and run with it, that's not afraid of taking heat for what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
I think everybody's a little too afraid. I think everybody's still a little bit, oh, well, I don't want to offend this person and I don't want to offend that person. Bullshit.
Well, you're not going to
offend away.
You're not going to be able to offend them if they're fucking dead.
Right. That's a reality. By the way, and you guys have kids. You guys have small kids or junior high kids, age kids. Jesus criminy. For that reason alone, I would get neck deep in this.
Absolutely. That terrifies me. And
you bet your butt.
And I can speak from experience all day long about drinking, right? And that's why I'm asking you these questions and asking where I can go, because I have no experience in that. So I need some knowledge, right? Sure. I'm trying to learn, trying to have a clue. Right. And that's because I am terrified for my kids and my friends' kids and everybody else. And when I do read the news, it's a fucking nightmare.
Of course it is.
Yeah. And the way that the information is delivered or anything. A good resource, Dan, is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast. He gave you a perfect end to plug the podcast. Speaking of, I don't want to get off this without talking about, I thought it was really wonderful, and really how we connected was, you not only, of course, the book, if I'm being honest, but you put the podcast out there. And I got to ask, did you get backlash at first from certain people like, this is anonymous?
No, not so much that. I did get a bit of enough already. We get it, but you recovered. Good for you. Now move on with your life, kind of thing. And I was like, Jesus. And I tried to. The old me would have been like, fuck you. But I tried to explain, hey, if it wasn't for my sobriety, I'd have nothing.
Right.
Literally. I wouldn't have my wife and kids. I wouldn't have my job. I wouldn't have anything. And so I'm not afraid to shout it out loud every single day. And I don't care. If it bothers you, then just don't listen to me. That's fine.
Good for you.
But I get a lot more positive remarks. And the book out there, it's only out in the Netherlands and Belgium right now. It's coming out in the US in a few weeks. But I put an email address at the end of the book and just told people, shoot me an email, tell me what you think, or if you relate or whatever. The emails I'm getting from people, that's what it's about, right? It's why you do this podcast. It's why I do mine. It's been overwhelming that it's resonating with people. And
nice.
And it makes people feel better about opening up and, saying their problem out loud, and maybe that they need help or their husband needs help or whatever it is. And it's just been incredibly rewarding from that aspect.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, and I think we're just at a point in our society to really help people. I respect anyone that wants to keep their anonymity. I would never break theirs. I would never ask them to, but I think those of us that are willing to, it's so incredibly important. And it just, again, it's two most proven things that help with long-term recovery: community and a sense of spirituality. And it's like, if we can at least try to be, like, I'm a person that suffered too. Here I am. Free, no agenda. My agenda is I'm still here. So I'm going to help, and we need a hell of a lot more of it for sure.
Hell yeah. That sense of community is everything, because I never wanted it in any other aspect of my life. I loved being by myself, isolating.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the biggest thing to really open up to. And man, not just for my sobriety, just for my way of life. What a better way to live, to actually be connected to people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Dan, people want to find out more about you and watch for when the book drops in the US. Are you going to do an audiobook?
Yep. Audiobook's already recorded, so that'll be out there too.
Thank goodness. I drive a lot.
Yeah, my wife is like, you have to do an audiobook. I don't read. But yeah, it's all the same stuff. If I'm being honest, that's the podcast, that's the book. And I'm just going to keep sharing and keep asking a million questions to guys like you.
That's fantastic. Dan, thank you so much, man. This has been This has been very good. Like I said, congratulations on 2.5 years. That's amazing. Keep it up. I seriously, I've never said this to anybody else, but I'm looking at your face, and you've got a great face, and it's just, it's clear. It's a beautiful thing to see, when sobriety is there and it's working. God bless you, man. Seriously.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
That is great stuff right there. Great stuff.
Thank you.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.